Hello there and welcome back to The Closet Historian and back to my series Cataloging Catalogs, where today we're going to be making quite a leap back in time from our usual material. Normally I'm flipping through Montgomery Ward's catalogs or Butterick or Simplicity Vogue pattern catalogs from the 1940s or 50s, but today I have some 1890s 100-year-old plus material to show you. And originally I was meaning to go through both these French fashion magazines and also these US issues of Delineator today, but in the end, my voice has given out after only going through the French magazines. So if you'd like to see me flip through the Delineator and point out some of the details in here as well, do let me know if you'd like another video like this below. But I'll move these to the side and I can go ahead and dive on into these French fashion plates. And seeing as we're all very excited for October at this point, we will begin with October of 1897. But as always, I will be scanning all of this material for you to peruse at your leisure and translate if you wish, and all of that will be available via link to my Pinterest board below. On the front, we have this sort of camel-colored wool jacket is what I'm guessing this is. If I had to imagine a fabric, this seems to almost be some sort of silk satin skirt or maybe a silk wool blend or something like that. We'll have to see. If it says somewhere inside, in French I can understand. But I think something important to note about this illustration here, it's the cover of this French fashion magazine, and yet there is puckering along this seam in the front. So as a costumer, if you can't quite get your silk to sit completely smooth, don't worry, neither could the high fashion fashionistas of October 1897. And we do see that the very large sleeves of the earlier portion of the 1890s have deflated down a little bit. This is still a leg of mutton sleeve, but it's much less gargantuan than you see earlier in this era. We have an excellent hat here as well. This does seem to have a almost a boater kind of shape, but then with these three large ostrich plumes. Those are probably layered ostrich plumes, so it's not just one feather for each of these. It's probably a stack of them, and then those are curled. It's very hard to find nice quality ostrich feathers like this anymore that have been prepared in this way. You can find antique ones online sometimes, but to prepare feathers in this way, it requires kind of techniques that have been almost lost. There does seem to be a bit of black showing here. I'm not sure if that is trim on the jacket, the top of a pocket flap or trim or something like that, or if it's just meant to indicate a belt here with this. What would be really interesting is if there was a slit here in this front princess seam, and this belt went around the back but then slipped in and buttoned underneath this so that the front of the jacket hung a little bit open, which is something you see very often on 1890s fashion, is to have almost bolero jackets or open front jackets like this that don't close. But a good way to achieve fit at the waist while still having that open front would be to have a belt that slits through like that. So an interesting idea. Maybe I should try and replicate this jacket, honestly this entire ensemble, in the future. And our other gal here on the front is wearing a bow tie, which is quite fun, with her collar. That probably is a separate starched collar that could be worn separate from this blouse and ensemble. Makes things easier to launder, and we'll probably see separate collars in some of these pages today. She does have lace cuffs, and this sleeve is quite narrow down here at the wrist. I'm not seeing any buttons to make that so I'm not sure how they're achieving quite such a narrow wrist without a closure, but who knows. She does seem to have white leather gloves on, that's my guess here. Probably this gal as well, although the hands in proportion to the rest of the ladies here, not quite up to scratch. But while this ensemble seems to be made up of different pieces, sort of separates, sportswear, as we would say in modern fashion, this does seem to be a dress or a matching bodice and skirt with a very large sailor-style collar, of course, and then this is trimmed in similar matching stripes as to the rest, although it's mitered here along the collar, which is quite fun. Now, taking a look inside, we can see we have our hair tutorial for the chignon on the front, so that's nice. If you can read French, you can find out how to do your hair just like the gal in the front had it there. This is pretty similar to this hairstyle, it looks like. Now, I am working with newsprint that is over 100 years old at this point, so there are many problems going on. It's very brittle at this point. I'm not wearing gloves because honestly gloves would mean I break more of this paper than if I have the full dexterity. So I do just have recently washed hands and my, of course, paintbrush Antique Roadshow pointer thingy. But much of these supplements instead of fashion plates is actually instruction, so hair tutorials, stories, how to embroider an apron, embroidery patterns, little sewing patterns, things like that. Again, I'm going to scan all of these pages, so if you want to follow along with any of these tutorials in French, feel free. And we begin with this dress up here, which actually does look to have a crepe texture. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a morning garment or something that would be appropriate as well for morning. Crepe anglaise and cashmere wool seem to be the two main ingredients I can tell. And you can see this is more of a walking length or day length skirt here, although her shoes are completely covered. It's just barely skimming the floor, but we don't have a train going on here. We just have some pleats in the back, and this is just an A-line skirt here in the front. This is before the skirts become extra tulip shaped almost at the turn of the century. So this is still the Victorian era as opposed to Edwardian. And you can see that while the blouse sort of front and S-bend shape is starting to come into play here as we move towards that turn of the century, it's not fully into the absolutely exaggerated S-band corsets that we'll see after the turn of the century. But although the sleeves have come down in size from their height here in the 1890s, we do still have these huge wings coming off these sleeves here. And something like these would be easy enough to pattern draft. It's actually just like a big, like half circle, of course, with the edges of that dagged, and then it's gathered and set in while the sleeve is set in. So something like this would be easy enough to add on if you wanted a very bat-like situation. And which of us doesn't, especially leading into October. We have a wonderfully bedecked, flat-crowned ribboned hat here. Again, this sort of almost boater-ish shape, but then layered with ribbons, and then tilted quite far forward down on the front of the head. You can see that same sort of shape here as well. I might be making a hat like one of these soon here on the channel. And we do start to see a little bit more of a tulipy shape here, even in 97. Remember, this is France as well, so this is the capital of fashion at this period. So they are going to be a little bit farther forward than anyone else when it comes to fashion, because they're setting the fashion still at this point. And we see a very fitted sleeve from about, the mid bicep down. We do still have this puff here at the top. It sort of looks like whipped cream at the top over here on the shoulder, but the rest of the sleeve is quite narrow here. So we have different sleeve shapes even within 1 year. It's not like everyone in 97 had the exact same sleeve shape going on. There's a variety, and of course people were still wearing things from earlier if they couldn't afford new things. So when it comes to year-specific design details, just like when we're looking at vintage fashion, here in antique fashion, or historic costume as we would call it today, there is a variety within each era, within each season, a variety of shapes. This skirt is very bell-shaped and A-line, traditional A-line shape. This one is got a little bit more drape in the fabric itself, probably, so it's not holding that out as straight. So we start to see a little bit more of a tulip skirted line that we see later at the turn of the century. This one does have a gored construction, as you can see, because there is a very faint seam for the center front panel here, so it's got a princess seam down the front of the skirt. Then we do have, again, some extra fullness and even pleats back here. This is probably a slightly circle cut, and then also with the pleats at the center back of the skirt. But you can see what I mean from the last page when I was saying that there's a lot of like almost bolero sort of jackets that don't necessarily close at the front. That seems to be what we have going on here. How they keep those so close to the body, I'd love to know. I mean, of course, there's an interior structure going on here. There's a corset underneath. There could be pins, all kinds of stuff to help hold this into place. Other than that, it could, of course, just be excellent tailoring. And I'm not sure what these little ruffs are. I assume those are neckwear. Hard to say without being able to read French. You can see some very fun trimming going on over on this ensemble. There's this, not really a lapel, but fold over. It seems like a faux wrap or a actual wrap. Yeah, there's no closure on the back, so it probably actually does close underneath this area with either snaps or hooks. Hooks and eyes. I forget when snaps were introduced, but I think we have snaps at this point. But this very fun geometric trimming going on here, which is of course echoed in the skirt, and there's lots of buttons. And then the trim wraps around, like barber pole style, around the arm as well. And this is definitely a leg of mutton sleeve here. But you can see a difference in shape between the sleeves on these two garments. So this one has a leg of mutton sleeve that just narrows all the way down to the wrist. And over here, there's just puff concentrated at the very top of the sleeve, and then it narrows immediately mid-bicep once again. So more similar to this sleeve as opposed to the like more traditional leg of mutton sleeve that we see here, which again is used down here. And this sleeve is almost more similar to this one again. So again, variety of sleeve shapes just on this one page. And this garment down here again does have that fold over asymmetric closure along the front. This time there seems to be two layers, or at least a full layer and then a false second one going on here. And this is worn belted, which you see belts on most of these garments here as well. These ones seem more like silk belts that are probably made to match, or at least made in a black silk that would match several things. And then this ensemble here, again, at this point, these are all going to be bodices and skirts, not a full dress. The really only full on dresses you see are aesthetic movement things from this time period, or wrappers, which we may see a few of later today. But this gown, or ensemble rather, does make use of a tartan on the bias here. As we can see, it is set on the bias for every part of this garment, but there's no attempt made to match the plaid, really. I mean, I guess it matches down here, but at the top of this, because this is an A-line, like triangular cut piece, you can't match the whole seam. So they kind of decided to match the plaid down here near the hem and then not up here near the waist. I can't decide which I would prefer either, honestly. But this, as you can see, has a square yoke as well. It'd be easy enough to make this collar piece be something that was separate that could be worn with this or without, especially if you were using, say, a tartan taffeta, something that could work for evening or daytime. If you did this as a separate neck piece that was worn over the garment, you could have a lower neckline underneath this, wear this as a dinner bodice, and then also for day wear. But you can see how thick some of these collars are. The stand collar is very tall at this point. It's not the most comfortable thing ever, especially if, I don't know, you don't have the world's slimmest neck. So sometimes I tend to make things with a shorter stand collar. not because of fashionable reasons, but just because of comfort reasons. We also do have this extra sort of winged, almost what I would call a Dracula collar, sort of a vampiric collar going on here as well. Oh, and I should mention, if there are any absolutely ridiculous, offensive, or racist remarks or imagery in these magazines, fortunately in the French I can't tell, but if anyone else can, I do apologize. Of course, this is a newspaper supplement from 1897, so views, I assume, are outdated in all regards. But mostly we have a sea of text I cannot read, a pattern for something over here. Probably this cape. I think this is for this child's cape, which this child looks completely overwhelmed in. And we do have an excellent hat here with birds perched on top of the hat and another spray of feathers in the back. Important to remember that this is at the height of when everybody was killing various species of birds to wear them in their hair. So this is when we started thinking about animal conservation, because they were killing off so many birds that different species were going extinct as they were being harvested for hat decorations and for their feathers. So sorry for the morbidity of that, but literally taxidermy jewelry, taxidermy birds on hats was all the rage. Oof. And how about this dark plum with black trim outfit here, which seems like almost a wool, velvet, or fur trim almost. This moth-shaped collar? What are we even looking at here? It's delicious. Which the little bow tie seems to match the trimmings on the hat here. And then of course we have this cross-hatching trellised trim down here along the hem of the skirt. Again, 2 matching pieces. You can see down here the back of this garment as well. So showing us what that looks like. This one does not seem to have an exterior belt on the outside, and neither does the gal next to her, but this image up in the top does on this cinnamon and black outfit up here, which is quite smart, and I would not mind having one myself. And we can almost see a hint of a blouse being worn underneath this ensemble. And then here we see what looks to me almost like a vest front that's probably being worn over a separate blouse or just a chemise underneath, because it's not like you'd be taking this jacket off if you got hot. No, it's not like we're layering for different levels of comfort here. We do have a very similar shape of leg of mutton sleeve on all 3 of these garments as well. Over here we have a tale as old as time, where someone like me is commiserating with a bride that she has to get married, but at least her outfit is absolutely stunning. Again, this does seem to be either a black or the darkest of purples. Really fun swirling trim on this. Does seem to have a fur or feather narrow trim on the front of the skirt, and then all along the front of the bodice as well. Hard to see all the details, but from what I can see, this is absolutely delicious. This is being a more formal gown, probably considered an afternoon dress, I would assume. This seems to be done in silk, whereas this seems to be done in wool. I would say this is more of an outdoor, like a visiting or like promenading ensemble, or even like a walking skirt suit, as opposed to something like this, which has a train on it. It's much more of an indoor garment and a slightly more formal garment as well. I don't know if this might even actually be crochet, like extremely fine crochet, because it does seem to be a single yarn. Hard to know without being able to read French. But looking at the chemise, you can see here the trim is the entire strap, so they didn't really have sleeves on all the chemises at this point. This is almost like when the camisole became a thing, or like a regular slip as we would understand them, started to become a thing. But we can take a look at our full fashion-y pages here now. Seem to have some more casual wear in here as well, including these jackets that have very large lapels and very fun fold-back collars, or a fur collar or feather collar in this case. Again, see how these are belted. We do still have this bit of a more rounded front coming into play here, especially here you can see how this is more of a pigeon-breasted shape that is coming into fashion here at the end of the 1890s. And while this is a very, again, traditional leg of mutton sleeve that narrows to a very narrow cuff down here, you can see this sleeve here has extra height in the sleeve. So the sleeve is longer and the sleeve cap is taller, and that is what is creating this very like rouged and scrunched sleeve here. Has a bit of a butterfly shape too. You do see these sleeves have been used in recent years when people are looking for an epic sleeve. You have seen more of the butterfly sort of winged shape of leg of mutton sleeve. Fancy fashion-y garments, not like normal everyday wear, of course. And again, regular sort of leg of mutton sleeve here, something that has a much more concentrated puff at the top and then is slim through the rest of the sleeve on this other dress. Excellent, very starched hat ribbons going on here as well. Super fun. Especially on this young gal. Her face is shorter than her hat ribbon. And this seems to be some sort of a back of the head bonnet or just weird hair ornament with fun like leaves with almost looks like jet beads along the ends of it, and then a fun feather going on. Don't really know what's going on with her fascinator here, but I do like it quite a lot. Looks like she's ready to take flight. And then on this outfit itself, she again has that narrow sleeve. This time it looks like it's only going to the elbow, and then she's wearing a long glove that meets up with that. but they are showing a sweetheart necklined almost sort of yoke here, again with that very high collar, and you do see the lace ruffle peeking out from underneath that on many of these, actually. Sometimes accented with a tie or a like a bow tie, an ascot, a lady's tie as well. This ensemble is again quite fun with this extra ruffle set into that sleeve cap up here, really taking flight, and the excellent Dracula collar going on as well. And you can see there's a separate layer of fabric along the hem of this with 2 layers of trim. This is a good save if you have a gown that maybe the hem got ruined, to just do a large facing and then put 2 layers of trim. Pretend it was just a new style. You didn't ruin your hem. None of us have ever ruined a hem, of course. A rather militaristic inspired ensemble here, of course, with a very feminine sleeve, again with a lot of puff at the top and a very narrow sleeve underneath. We have a military inspired braid and toggle down the center front of this bodice, and then also again accents on the skirt. You can see how much of an A-line skirt this is. Very traditional shape for the 1890s here. And again, a double layered puff sleeve over here and over here as well. It's almost like a separate puff sleeve on top of a narrower sleeve. I'm assuming that's how they're achieving this. This is a very fun little winged extra cuff going on here too. Love a little black winged cuff accent. And this neck embellishment on this ensemble is again something that would be easy to make as a separate thing to be worn with different colors or like different ensembles and blouses, especially if you had like a matching belt like this. You could really change up the look if you of course couldn't afford many gowns, which many people at this time period certainly could not. Now we jump forward in time a little bit to January of 1898, it says here. And again, we see that very narrow sleeve, but still retaining the puff in the top there. We do have a sort of lighter colored belt over a figured silk or figured wool gown here. I'm assuming these are figured silk. And again, we see the absolute width of these collars, especially this one is very tall. Again, I wonder if these are separate starched collars that are worn over a blouse or are part of the blouse themselves. I think either were done, so could go either way. Here we have a DIY for a folding screen or a picture frame or something. Very fun. We do have patterns in here. As you can see, this is just giving you the general shapes that you would need to cut. So when it comes to like making it up and draping your own patterns and figuring it out on your own, when it comes to historic fashion, I think that's a perfectly acceptable way to do things, perfectly accurate way to do things. You know, if this magazine ended up with someone in a more rural part of France and that was their only guide to figure out how to make these fashions, they didn't have a dressmaker in town who had been trained in Paris or whatever, they're going to do their best, just like you can do your best at home. So I don't like the idea that unless you have a completely historically accurate reprinted pattern that you've sized up to fit you, your garment isn't accurate. I think making do is actually quite accurate within itself. But more embroidery patterns here, and we have this lovely transformation robe. Oh, I love a transformation robe. Transformation une robe ancienne. I don't know what this says, but it would be interesting to know. I assume that this can be worn with either bodice, perhaps, is what they're trying to imply. Hard to know. Once again, we are subjected to children's wear while trying to look at our fashions. Again, look at just how A-lined and bell-shaped this skirt is. Rather full. Need a couple of petticoats underneath there. Again, very smooth on the front. I don't see any seam lines, so that must be fitted with darts up here. And then this is flared additionally in the back, again with some gathering or pleats at the back of the waist. And again, we have a large sailor collar here that creates a sort of false vest front here. And there's an additional collar on top of that. A very fun hat, once again. Again, this is a boxier shape. I wonder if these are maternity wear? I have no idea. At this time, usually after you were several months pregnant, you would actually just stay inside and like retire from society until you came back. So I'm not sure how much, dedicated maternity wear there was at this point for wearing out and about. I'm sure things were designed for wearing at home to be comfortable, but actually maternity corsets were a thing, and thankfully it's not something I ever intend to do research on personally. Again, this very straight fronted A-line skirt that flares much more in the back. The bustle is gone at this point. You could have hip padding going on, especially moving into the actual Edwardian era where hip padding was definitely still a thing. Padding in general to achieve the fashionable silhouette. If you can't make your waist smaller, make the rest of you bigger and your waist will look smaller. It's what these shoulders are doing as well. But again, we have most of the flare of this skirt concentrated in the center back. These almost look like seaside sort of ensembles here. I love the shape of this collar and the back of it. Yummy. I'm pretty sure this is the back of this dress and this is the back of this dress. So they switched those around. Someone in editing who's in the graphic design department, they missed this one. And we do have a sleeve pattern here. And a new style of sleeve that's not a one-piece sleeve, it's not a two-piece sleeve, it's actually a three-piece sleeve. And there is a slit down here that needs to be finished in some way so that you can fit your dang hand in there, I assume. Also, it seems to have these little splits down here at the wrist which are created by folding that back. Very fun. And we do have some ensembles for the ball for young girls and young women. Here we can see, again, very tall glove, but very slight sleeve going on. Oh, this gal, at some point, it's just too many ruffles, you know? This seems to be an okay amount of rufflage, in my opinion, although it almost looks like there's like sea urchins or sea foam appearing at the end of her gown. But this is just probably too much rufflage, okay? Calm down. And again, notice the crumples in even their silk taffeta, so don't feel bad about yours. I have another couple of shoes here. I did order these from France. I saw them on Etsy and thought we would have fun looking through them. Here we are in November of 1897, so in between those first two issues we were looking at. There's a rusty cinnamon sort of colored ensemble here. The top of a jacket looks like, or like riding habit kind of style. And then with a brown fur collar, and then an excellent plum or possibly black hat. It's hard to know if the inks have moved around on us. Inside we have a couple of patterns for separate collar pieces. Again, a yoke, just like I was talking about earlier, a separate yoke collar that you could wear over different things to kind of change up the look of your bodice. Very good. If you're on a budget and only have so many gowns, but have a little bit of silk left over, you could make something like this to really transform the look of something. First of all, excellent capes. I will take both of these over toppers here. This excellent cape with a fur trim and a fur muff. And then we have this fur trimmed jacket as well. Of course, I prefer faux fur myself, but at this time they certainly didn't. And up here we even have a plumes something, so some sort of feather boa, an actual feather boa, pals. Wouldn't I like to go back to the dry goods store or whatever fancy, milliner there was where they sold feather boas in 1897. We also have additional separate collar pieces here. This is like a jabot collar here with some ribbon and lace that can be worn over something else. This one's a cravat, taffeta blue turquoise. That sounds exciting. And then again, another separate ruffly collar down here. And then we have this one, which seems to have like a faux, I hope a faux fur little face of a like vole, or looks like a cat to me. No idea what's going on here. I don't like it though. I don't like it. You can see the variety of trimming going on here. This one is much more patterned than its friend beside it. However, wow, look at the extent of that collar. Intense. Again, a very traditional leg of mutton sleeve here next to her friend who has this almost cowled leg of mutton top puff sleeve thing. No idea, but these sleeve shapes are rather similar. This again seems almost military inspired, a little bit sailor suit looking over here. Something velours border de plumes. So I don't know if that's feather trim or fur trim actually. No idea. Again, we have an excellent collar shape down here. And here on the back we have some young ladies' ball gowns, toilette de bal. So this is a ball gown. These seem like more like day-wear pieces. Of course, I would absolutely adore to have this jacket. It's delicious. This sleeve again has extra height built into it. So as opposed to having the sleeve be wide, the piece has been lengthened so that you can ruche it down and have this ruched effect along the arm. And we have another issue for December of 1897 here. With very fun, I don't know if this is part of the fabric. Looks like almost it would be like where the selvage is, and this is a pattern in the fabric. And that's cut like this. It seems to have less pleats in the back, but there is a very small indication, so who the heck knows. And you can actually see her fun belt buckle on her belt this time. A lot of excellent pins and brooches and buckles at this time for all these belts everyone was wearing. And I don't know why this is not a more like popular area of collecting for all the Edwardian enthusiasts out there who like this turn of the 1800s to the 1900s time period, because a lot of sash belts being worn, and I don't see people raving over sash belt buckles enough. I have a few in my collection. Let me know if you'd like to see my like small collection of actual antique jewelry, because I do have some antique costume jewelry in my collection as well. And we do seem to have a, I assume, child's, but perhaps anyone's bonnet pattern here. And more embroidery patterns. How to tie bows, how to do your ruffles. These are important things. And we have a polka dot outfit here. You don't think of polka dots as a late Victorian thing, but here they are in 1897. We have this rather, I don't know, late Victorian does George Washington cravat slash jabot thing here. Again, to be worn over, multiple pieces if you wanted to. You wear this over this, create a whole new look. This almost has like a false little vest or false bolero as part of it. Again, another good way to save a hem. And you can still see that some of these skirts, they have that less direct A-line shape like, say, this one does. Even the drape of the skirt or the cut of it has come in a little bit like along the knee, so we're starting to get that tulip-shaped skirt that comes in later. These seem to be nighttime for soiree or noir ensembles here, they do again have that very tall opera length glove and then a shorter puff sleeve, although they both do have their décolletage completely covered. I personally like this daytime ensemble with funky trim yet again, especially the back of whatever, I don't even know which dress this is, because the back of this is this, so I guess it's what's being worn underneath this? No, maybe this is the back of this one. Aha! This is the back of this, but I do like the dagged peplum line on that. That's very fun. And again, replicated in the trim here. Just very fun style lines. I could talk about all the style lines on these pages and draw attention to all kinds of stuff like what the heck's going on with this jacket. It's delicious. The shape of the lace on this yoke is super pretty. So is the back. I mean, a lot of it is just too tasty, you know? Here we again have an entire, looks like ball gown bodice. Actually, again, I think this is a transformation gown. So we have the nighttime version and the day version. This seems to be the same bodice, just worn with sleeves. This is the same sort of sleeve puff on here, filling in the collar, worn with sleeves for day or for dinner perhaps, and then for like a ball you would wear your skin out on show. And we do have the pattern down here. And we have some hablé, which I assume is like riding habit inspired things. I'm not sure if you were actually meant to actually go riding in these. They don't seem too rough and ready. They seem absolutely pretty. This again, separate little sleeve accents set into the sleeve cap here. These little pokey pieces. You could definitely use offcuts from making the rest of the gown to do something like this and set them in with your sleeve. Very fun trimming here on this skirt as well. And then this double lapel is very fun. Almost looks quilted, this inner lapel here. And simply a ton of individual like cord and button or cord like knot trim on this. Time consuming, but very pretty. And here we are again, back in November of 1897. Although there's a cat, children are playing with a cat. This is how you get me to play with children, honestly, is if there was a cat there. That might do it for me. We have more tatting or crochet here, another chemise. And again, these high, tall Dracula collars here, even on just like the back of the collar. Really frames the face. The more slender neck you have, I think the better this goes. I'm not sure if I could get away with the true full Dracula collar, sadly. Again, we see these two main sleeve shapes here, the regular like a button, and then the top gathered buddy here. This again seems to have more sleeve cap height than sleeve cap width. That's how they're creating this sort of deflated puff at the top. And here on the back, we do seem to have some young ladies and young women's toilette de visite, so visiting clothes for paying calls, as they used to do at this time period. And the nice thing about paying a call is often these visits where you would go and leave your card for your friends and family if they weren't there, or visit with them, maybe take tea, is that they would often only be like a 15-minute call, which sounds like the perfect sort of arrangement for very introverted people like myself. Now let's see what we have here. We have December 1897, and I mean, I like this cape, but this one is a Dracula dream. Absolutely full cape sleeves. The back is still, however, fitted to the waist. Would love to see what the front of this looks like. This looks like either a long fur or feather trim on both the collar and the shoulder puffs, which seem to be a separate tier that's a little bit more puffed than the cape sleeve underneath it. Just delicious. Lobster embroidery patterns. That's all I gotta say about that. More crochet glove pattern here. Again, we have a almost wrap front style here. I wonder if this closes along the side. I'm sure it closes in the center front and then this overlaps over that. And a very funky lapel here. It's not dagged, it's not scalloped, it's somewhere in between. Interesting. Again, we see extra height with a seam down the center of this sleeve that is holding that ruching in place. And again, down here you have the extra flanges added in while the sleeve is sewn on to really emphasize that shoulder line. The thing about having the wider shoulder line here is that the hat is helping to balance that out a bit. I think without a hat, it's less like artistically balanced, but usually a hat can solve a wide shoulder problem. We have an absolutely delicious sort of coat dress. Yeah, Reading tote, like a riding habit, again, inspired ensemble, loosely inspired, but fun, tall, geometric Dracula collar to frame the face, and a absolutely massive giant lapel on there. Another sort of sweetheart-shaped dropped pointed yoke here, easy enough to add on to even modern garments. It's just a style line. Just cut the pattern apart where you want it, add seam allowance to both, sew it back together. Again, we have another pattern, this time for the whatever this is. It's actually misprinted, so I cannot hardly read it. Ooh, delicious corset here, which actually has front lacing, which I've never seen a corset from this time period that has front lacing and not a busk. So that's weird. Anyone want to translate this one and tell me about it? Please do. Anyway, again with the Lobster Table Runner. Thank you so much for this image magazine where we have the Lobster Table Runner that they teach you how to embroider on the inside, but then also this lady with her cute hat with a lovely, again, sash buckle. This one looks almost like a cut steel sash buckle pinned on her hat. Creates a rather surreal, weird image. And still here in November of 1897, we have some more chillins. And we have plenty of patterns this time. So if anyone wants to try and make these up, they're not sized. Honestly, these patterns are like a general suggestion. There's not even like a scale to tell you. So, enjoy. But you can see here, this is a 2-part sleeve on this one, and how they are manipulating like the normal sleeve cap in a different way to create weird drape on the sleeve. So you can have any sort of interesting different puffage going on with your puff sleeves at this point. It seems like almost all upper sleeve puff is accepted. I'm not sure if this is a skirts or petticoats. They look almost like petticoats to me, but it does say it's taffeta. So a nice rustly taffeta petticoat. Of course, no one's mad about that. This is an interesting trim pattern, however. There's a lot going on there. We have a ball gown here. Again, long opera glove, more of a ruffle than an actual sleeve. I think this daytime suit here is my favorite. Again, in a tartan that's set on the bias. And a very fun tilted topper, as we are wont to have. We have some more ball gowns down here as well. Again, not so much an actual sleeve as just a puff of trim or ruffle. But you really see this blousey, almost pigeon breast front coming in here even in 1897. But all the tailored garments are so gorgeous from this time period. I would love to take one apart. Again, another day spent time traveling. Please take me to the dressmaking or tailor shop and let me be the fly on the wall for the day and watch how everything was actually done. And this ensemble, me with these opera glasses, judging what people have done to Victorian homes in New York. Because let me tell you, I was judging what people have done. Must say this is some quite scandalously red lipstick for this time period on these gals. Very ubiquitous hairstyle, however, for everyone. Another excellent lapel shape here. Again, as like a self-fabric embroidered belt here. And again, such a raised collar with a bit of a ruff. Don't ever let people tell you they didn't have ruffs anytime other than the earlier Elizabethan period. But clearly a variation on the ruff came back into style here in the 1890s. And we have another absolutely gorgeous camel-colored jacket. I mean, look at the back line of that. Yummy. With this split Dracula collar that I do use so often myself for the back. And an excellent bird-winged and otherwise ruffled front tilted topper here. It looks like a straw base on this. Let me see. We are in May of 1898 now. So we've really jumped forward in time to May. Let's see what some spring fashions look like instead. And again, we have these little extra sleeve flounces. Quite the scalloped trim with lots of buttons going on here. Those look almost like self-fabric or silk-covered buttons to me. I haven't seen this style line on garments from this time period before with this very high cut. Instead of having this be a gore or a princess seam, it goes off into the side underneath the hip here. And this is almost like a large godet set into here. Quite fun. The rest of the gown is so simple, which is why you could wear it with those jabots or other collars to mix it up later on. It's almost nice to have a simple gown for that reason. And you have a cravat mousseline here as well that you could wear with something like this. Or like this. And you can see a vest or interior vest, a blue turquoise taffeta. So again, this is a shirt front blouse. It doesn't have sleeves on it. So when you're wearing, some of these more jackety-ish looking bodices, you can change out the vest that you're wearing underneath it. So just a sleeveless blouse that you're wearing underneath these things, again, being able to change the look of your ensemble just by changing out the shirt front. Again, a very fun asymmetric finish. This one actually has no waist seam. It's a little bit dropped here below the waist. Almost like a dropped waist seam on the back and then no waist seam on the center front panel. Very Art Nouveau, kind of, again, leaning into that almost tulip shape that's coming in. And look how, like Art Nouveau, this bow-trimmed one starts to look. And again, we have another taffeta vest in apricot this time. Well, that's exciting. Apricot and cream, it sounds like. or apricot cream. Very layered skirt going on here. Takes more fabric to do something like this, of course. The trim on this is an odd spattering. I think I prefer the ocean waves over here. And I have two or three more supplements here. This time we're in March of 1898. It's hard for me to read it from far away because I am nearsighted. Again, absolutely delicious shape of collar here. I think we're supposed to be focusing on the absurd hat, which yes, again, does have a taxidermied bird with curled tail feathers stuck in the air. Don't forget. And this also has two taxidermy little birds on it as well. Whether those are actual taxidermy birds, which is what it looks like in this case, or just made, like birds made of feathers, I cannot tell. Again, we have rather like droopy, not tall. So you can see the shoulder line here. These sleeves are not puffing above the shoulder line anymore. Most of the puff is not at the very top of the sleeve cap, but is along the sides of the sleeve cap. So it creates this like rouged, almost deflated shape as opposed to the very like giant puff sleeves. Again, the shoulder line is straight across, so the puff isn't coming up above the shoulder very much at all. But in general, the shape of the puff is kind of concentrated through the mid section as opposed to the top of the cap. And we have more hat designs here on the back. Again, spot the bird. Two small black birds here. We have a full, looks like taxidermied bird going on this one. And we have a taxidermied like bust of a bird going on here. So when people say, you know, you don't have to call these things goth, I mean, they were literally wearing dead animals on their heads. Seems pretty macabre to me. And we have December of 1897 here. This is like combining the ideas of a sailor collar and those sleeve extra flanges. It seems like this was part of this pattern piece and then that's cut away and then flapped over. And these do look like maybe French jet or jet buttons here on the front. And this seems to be a ruffled ribbon trim, actually. We do see a black silk satin ribbon belt with this, where the bow is placed vertically, which is quite fun. More DIYs on the inside here, including a pattern for a skirt. And we have some wedding gown inspiration down here once again, although I quite like the shape of this jacket, or bodice rather. We have more of a jacket style bodice again over here with these, again, knots and strings, sort of corded trimming or button trim, not sure which it is. Excellent, strange hats going on here, by the way. These truly look like just, some of these are just like puffs of ribbon with some flowers stuck into them and then pinned onto the back of the head. Again, we have those sleeve extra ruffles, which of course creates a stronger shoulder line, but notice again, it's still out, not up, is what we're seeing for sleeves for this time period. Down here, this one's up, but everything else much more gathering along the side of the sleeve, not necessarily the sleeve cap. And how's this for an outfit? That's a frameable page right there. We have, looks like it's got like a cross hatching. I assume they're trying to indicate wool there. It could be a figured silk. This, however, looks like a changeable silk. This looks like an iridescent silk that they're trying to depict here to me. Means that there's a red and a navy cross woven to create the iridescent effect. Delicious fabric. I don't need the extra ruffle down the front, but very tasty, especially with the velvet ribbon trim and lace insets going on here. See a white leather glove with that. And again, a hat tilted forward with a lot of Alice in Wonderland going on the top of it. Big bits of symmetrical ribbon with some faux flowers. And again, if we study the sleeve shape for this one, I really like this sleeve shape. I kind of want to try it on a silk blouse bodice that I want to do soon, where again, this is not an up sleeve, this is an out sleeve. So there's width through here. The height is all gathered down below the sleeve cap itself. And this is kind of a butterfly wing shaped sleeve. I'm not exactly sure what these are called. If I can find a name for them, I'll put it here, but it's a leg of mutton sleeve, but all the fullness is concentrated up here above the elbow for sure. And then again, kind of more of an outward triangular shape as opposed to just a straight on rounded puff sleeve. And we are in April of 1897 over here. So again, a little bit more spring fashion, which is nice. Mostly winter fashions that we've had today. How to make these stand-up bows to make your ridiculous hats. Excellent. You can see even what the hat base looks like, which is nice to see this little cap of straw with a ruffle around the edge that you just pile your trim onto and just wear it on the top of your head like so. Very fun. Again, some extra like tie collar accessories that you can wear on top of things. Very elaborate jabot, and then very simple bows in some ways. Again, we have another vest front style blouse up here, this time with lots of ruffling going on. And again, that pigeon front and tulipy skirt from 1900 already coming into effect here. Fashion is, of course, a continuum. These things do not change overnight. So we have the A-line shape really transforming into that tulip shape throughout this, the years either side of the turn of the century. And again, we see a very slim sleeve with extra puffage at the top, and then also just the traditional leg of mutton sleeve, even though it's much smaller than it used to be earlier in the 1890s. Here's our final gown on the back. Again, quite simple in some ways. Not a ton of trim going on in the front. Just a slight bit of off-center lace here. Of course, trimming along the skirt set into a chevron. Replicated again in the shape of the trim on the belt here. And then again, that rouged sleeve with the extra height in it, but with a puff on top as well. And again, very Art Nouveau daffodil embroidery pattern on this one. Probably better than Lobster's, but who am I to say? So unfortunately, it has taken me quite a bit of time just to go through these French magazines, so I don't think I'm going to get to the delineators today. And I've actually had these delineators here in the studio for over a year now. These were actually a gift, and I've kind of been too afraid to even kind of go through them. But now, since these ones are even more fragile, I kind of just want to scan all my 1890s material at once. So I'll go through these next. Let me know if you'd like to see me flip through that and kind of point out the details to you like this again as well for this stack of delineator. And again, you can find the link to all these scans below. In any case, thank you as always for watching today. I'll be back here with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, and crafting real soon, so I'll see you then. Bye!